I'd like to thank Dr. Steve Larson and the National Pork Board for the opportunity to visit with you today. This topic, as I said, is one that's been very close and personal priority of mine for the past 20 years and in our operations. And I just want to say that I firmly believe that that improving pork quality, along with the ability to accurately and consistently identify it in the meat case, coupled with proper cooking and preparation, will give us the potential as an industry to add tremendous value to this industry. Just to give you a little heads up, my comments are going to be somewhat brief, and Dr. Larson's going to come and talk to you a little bit about the pork board, where they're at after my comments, and then we're going to open it up for a question and answer session, and I would as soon do that to see what's on your mind as I would anything. So I'm going to first talk about the history of the Pork Quality Initiative from a pork board perspective in my time that I have had to spend with the pork board. Secondly, the opportunity that I see that quality has to be able to add to the value of our industry, and last, a little bit about the True Line story and what we've done. So as far as the history of the Pork Quality Initiative, it began several years ago at the National Pork Board. The need to address this area in U.S. pork production was first brought to our attention while serving on the National Pork Board Animal Science Committee, when our committee received a letter from a concerned housewife in New York City who asked the question that's on the screen. She said at the end of the letter, "Whatever happened to old-fashioned taste and tenderness?" And that really resonated with me and the rest of the people on the Animal Science Committee at that time. And it got our attention, and I think it provided the catalyst to begin the discussion to address this problem. This was at a point in time, if you all remember, when we had an industry, we were bringing about rapid change in reducing back fat and fat content in the U.S. pork. But as we know, the science has already shown the improved feed efficiency and lower cost of producing a pound of lean versus a pound of fat was much more efficient. But what we didn't realize was the change it was bringing about in the loss of taste, tenderness, firmness, and eating experience to our product. What we had ended up with was a product that was very difficult to prepare and would end up, if we weren't careful, on tasting a little bit too much like a piece of shoe leather, pardon my language. This, of course, after overcooking it to 160 degrees or better, as was the custom handed down from grandmother to mother to daughter, to be sure we killed any trichina worm that might remain in there, which today we're trichina free. To address these problems, the Animal Science Committee at the National Pork Board initiated a research call to evaluate the current state of U.S. pork in the meat case, how it was perceived by the consumer, and what their eating preference and satisfaction was of the various grades of pork. This research project was entitled the Consumer Preference in Benchmarking Study. This was followed by additional studies since then that have continued to gather consumer and product information on how pork is viewed and purchased. And Dr. Larson can speak to that if you have any questions about that on what's current and when he comes forward. Through this first study, though, it was quickly realized that overcooking and improper preparation was a serious problem that needed to be addressed. Therefore, research dollars were put forth by the National Pork Board to research lower cooking temperatures that would give us a juicier and more tender product while remaining safe. This took us over 3 years to research and gain approval through USDA Unfortunately, we sent this information to USDA in the fall of our previous 8-year election term, and it seemed like it got lost somewhere in USDA for about a year before they finally picked up on it and gave us the final approval. So it is a USDA approved product. Of course, with that we can cook to 160 degrees internal temperature with is a 2-minute delay or 3-minute delay before consuming. So for this study, it was quick. Like I said, it's quickly realized that overcooking was a problem that needed to be addressed. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be a little blatant in confessing a truth. I think that I, along with many of you listening today, though with all the improvements we've made, will still not order a pork product meal from a restaurant menu because of the fear of being disappointed by the lack of consistency and the proper eating experience that we might not have. I must confess that I personally eat very few pork entrees away from my home. I don't like to say that, but that's the truth. So we're still got some work that has to be done as an industry. So what's the opportunity? I see us as an industry, we have been on a 15-year journey through the National Pork Board. And then we now need to complete the task, which is to improve our natural pork quality, consistency, and identity. I believe this can be accomplished through the 3 major components of genetics, nutrition, and management. Now, I'm not talking just about management at the production level, but also the management of maintaining the quality of our product from conception to consumption. Because there's a lot of steps from conception to consumption before this product is what we want it to be when it's put on the center of the plate. So I think that today we stand at a gateway of bringing about the needed changes that must take place for us to move forward as an industry. I think the first thing we must do is continue improvement needed in pork quality. Second, right behind that, maybe more importantly, is an identification and grading system that provides consistent identity of quality grade. And thirdly, is a branded quality product that will bring about a consistent improvement in taste, tenderness, and eating experience. I truly believe that there is no greater eating experience than the natural flavor of an all-natural, high-quality gourmet pork product that is properly cooked and prepared. One of our major challenges, I believe, is providing an opportunity for more consumers and pork leaders to experience the superior eating quality of a truly superior quality product. Once it is experienced, there will be a real desire to demand more of this kind of product. And it's most because it is moist and tender versus hard and dry, has body and texture versus slick and tasteless. And you know what I'm talking about. Problem is, we send a lot of our hams to Mexico. My goal is that someday, and some of those hams are probably, they all go into luncheon meat, so not as the highest quality hams maybe that we have. I believe that someday when we can have the main meal, a ham that has taste, tenderness, a good eating experience, and has firmness and body to it, would be one of the goals that I would like to see us strive for. I do understand, though, that there are a lot of different demands and markets for various kinds and qualities of pork product, and we need a market for all of them. However, I firmly believe that adding value to pork quality is the key to increasing the image and consumption of pork. We can be that high-quality, center-of-the-plate product that will add extra value, as well as continuing to be the staple that we have always been in the past. Dr. Steve Larson and his team at the National Pork Board are responding to this opportunity that is before us, as well as responding to the National Pork Board long-range plan that calls for the improvement of pork quality in the meat case by 10% as identified by color score over the next 5-year period of this plan, and we're well into about a year and a half into that plan now. And I believe that's a measurable, it's significant that it was a part of the long-range plan, and it has a measurable to it. So I might have share then a few remarks about, maybe a little bit about our operation and what we've done at TrueLine Genetics. TrueLine Genetics, if you want to put up that slide, there we go, is a family-owned 550 sow purebred breeding business that produces about 150 pigs weekly, weaning a 17.5-pound pig at 27 days of age into wean-to-finish barns that were the first wean-to-finish barns put up in the state of Missouri back in 1998. So we're getting some age on our buildings, but they're still working. We utilize the Stages genetic evaluation system provided by the National Swine Registry with whole herd testing and ultrasound technology. We maintain pure lines of Duroc, Landrace, Large White, Berkshire, and maternal Hampshires. In our operation at TrueLine Genetics, we have made 2 long-term commitments over the past decade or 2. The first is to long-term genetic improvement for pork quality through genetic selection for all of the heritable traits known today to enhance and improve pork quality. This was began in 1998 and continues today. And we have been able to build a consistent business based off of consistent high-quality pork. I can tell you that at that point in time, the only people that was doing any of that was Supreme Pack, and it's 425 miles from my door to Supreme Pack. And we made that trip numerous times during genetic evaluation and progeny tests of sires. And this is how we began. We do have other measures today, but still, looking at the product, looking at the carcasses is still important. And so our second commitment was to remove the use of all antibiotics in our 550 sow purebred production system from birth to market. Today, we are in our 10th year of genetic selection for all production, reproduction, and performance traits with no antibiotic support. And we truly believe that the genetic component that we can offer to our customer base today has more natural health and resistance to many problems than when we started 10 years ago. Now, I'll say this, it's been a steep learning curve. But through improved genetics, nutrition, and management, we're being successful. I believe these are 2 of the biggest production challenges facing our pork industry today, and we are committed to meeting those challenges. What else do I see? Maybe a thing or 2 into the future of pork quality coming. I believe very seriously that the growing consumer concern about how their food is raised, fed, handled, will continue to drive our industry. We need to consider that that's how it's going to be. Also, the next 10 years, though, will bring about, I think, the development of many, many new technologies and new innovations in the areas of genetics, genomics, nutrition, and management that will be driven by our commitment to reaching these goals. I think 10 years from now we'll look back and say, well, that wasn't no big deal. It won't be as big a deal as we think it's going to be, because we as an industry in this country have been great innovators, and we respond rather quickly to the needs that's out there. And I can assure you, as we move to the use of less antibiotics, it will be easier for you in the next 10 years than it was for us the last 10 years. but I can assure you that it can be done. I think the opportunities will be unlimited as you look to the value that we can and will be able to add to our pork industry. Pork consumption is growing right now, and pork exports, if you've been watching and keeping up with them, are currently at a record high. Last year, come 1st of December, we were trailing by 6% in the amount of pork that was being exported. And just to give you a little background, we export about somewhere 23, 25% of our product in this country. It's about a $6.1 billion a year business for us. The month of December, our export sales increased by 17% in 1 month, which left us with about a 6% plus export business for last year. That seems to be carrying over now into this year, and we still, I think, every month we have been above a year ago levels in our pork exports. We have a growing world that wants to eat better. They want a product that we can provide for them that's better. We just need to make sure that we have the best one. And talking about that, since I serve on our National Pork Board Trade Committee and have been involved for the last 5 or 6 years, the shutdown on the West Coast really hurt us, because with our Japanese customers, who are number one in quality importers, we became a non-trustable entity because we didn't produce. It allowed the Europeans to move into that market. They've taken over about 10% of that market, and they're not going to give it up. Now, we need to continue to move forward in those markets and in those areas. And the Japanese market is our number one in dollar value. Mexico is our number two in quantity, number one in quantity, number two in quality, and then China comes behind that. But we're seeing lots of growth in our South American countries right now for exports. So I think that's a shining star in the future. I just will kind of conclude here by saying that I'm very proud of the U.S. pork industry. We're world leaders, and I'm sure that we can grow and maintain that position in all areas as we move into the future. So in conclusion, I'd like to remind you of this. You will only get what you plan for. John Johnson's heard me say that before. You will only get what you plan for. So my challenge is to make your plans, set your goals, and get ready to lead. You go nowhere without good leadership. We've had that good leadership in this country. The National Pork Board, the National Pork Producers Council have been enormous, have made an enormous influence on the success of pork production in the United States. So with that, I'd say thank you for your attention, and I'll turn it over to Steve if he wants to come up and talk just a little bit to you about where the Pork Board perspective is, and then we'll take some questions.
Thank you, Everett. Want me to wear that one? Okay.
Nope. Just a minute. This way.
Is it stuck? You just want to leave it on? I'll lean down and talk into it.
You'd be awful close.
I'm okay with that.
Here you go.
All right. Well, hey, thank you, Everett. It's always nice to hear from a passionate pork producer. Everett's one of many. And before I forget, we'll hear from another passionate pork producer tomorrow. Jim Compart's going to give a pork quality update according to his perspective, and I'll follow up with that again tomorrow at the same time, same place. But what is the Pork Board doing? On your chair, you saw these little handouts right here. Over the past 10, 12 years, the Pork Board's been doing quite a bit of pork quality research, trying to understand consumer trends, consumer responses to pork quality, What do they like about pork quality? What are their preferences? How do they select pork chops out of the meat case? Two of the three things are on this piece of paper. One is, as Everett alluded to, the endpoint cooking temperature. One thing the research has told us is the lower the temperature, the higher the preference it is, but we need to educate consumers that pork is safe, it always has been safe, and you can cook it to 145 degrees with a 3-minute rest time if you choose to do so. You don't have to cook it to 160 or above. So that's one piece that the pork board's working on, is endpoint cooking temperature. On the other side is what we're calling our nomenclature. Patrick Fleming at the pork board worked long and hard about getting these names of chops instead of an assorted chop or center cut chop that we're all used to seeing. Get something more familiar with consumers out there, ribeye chop or the New York chop or the porterhouse chop. So this way consumers identify what they like and they can go back and buy it. Again, this is all to increase repeat purchases. And then the third part of that is the quality aspect. How do we give consumers what they want when it comes to quality parameters consistently? If you look out into the meat case, pork is not differentiated out there. All pork is the same when it comes to quality. You'll see different color scores within the same package, and it's tough to get a consistent eating experience with that. You know, as you'll see, the theme of this year's World Pork Expo, put more pork on my fork, because we're going to have a lot of pork out there on the market here later on this year. And how do we move that pork, whether internationally or domestically? And research has told us that consistency is the key. Consistency will increase repeat purchases, and repeat purchases will be able to move more pork. So our consistency approach is, think of it as a three-legged stool. Jared Sutton, our VP of Domestic Marketing, has been working on a lot of this with his team, with endpoint cooking temperature, with nomenclature, and then quality. How do we get that consistent quality to consumers identify with that they like? One aspect or one way to do that is with some type of a standard quality measurement tool, whether it's a technology or whether it's visual with your eye. Sorting, here we're talking about pork loins. Right now we're talking about pork loins, but how do we sort pork loins on specific quality parameters, whether it's color, visual color, or marbling, or tenderness? So how do we sort that to consistently deliver the quality of what consumers want? Again, our research has shown us is that not all consumers want the same thing. Some consumers like lighter colored chops for whatever reason. Some consumers like darker colored chops. And then there's consumers that just like what's in the middle. So how do we offer that consistency? And as Everett alluded to, one way to do that is to come up with some type of quality standard that's consistent across the industry so that consumers don't have to try to pick it out of the meat case every single time they go there. All they ought to do is look for this indicator of whatever quality aspect they're looking for. So what is the pork board doing? We're working on our three-legged stool of endpoint cooking temperature. Cook it to the right temperature of what you prefer, and use a thermometer. Visual appraisal is not good enough. You need to use a thermometer. Pick out the right pork chop, porterhouse, New York chop, ribeye chop. Make that consistent, and then find the quality you want. Find the quality you prefer. This way, it, again, increases repeat purchases, increases sales of pork. We're going to sell a lot more pork with consistency. So what is the pork board doing? We're working on a consistent product out there for consumers to help move this pork that's going to be on the market here in the next couple months out there. So that's my brief update. I appreciate Everett for coming up and telling his story and talking about pork quality. Remember, tomorrow's Jim Compart. He's going to do something similar to that. Please don't miss that, and I'll follow up just like we did today. I'll follow up tomorrow after Jim Compart's presentation of what the pork board is doing when it comes to quality, looking at technologies to assess quality. And again, it all boils down to consistency at the meat case to increase repeat purchases to sell more pork. So with that, Everett and I will open it up for questions. Please let us know what questions you have for our pork quality initiative. There's got to be a couple questions. Yes, sir.
What kind of technologies are you looking at? More like vision systems to...
Yep, so the Pork Quality, Safety, and Human Nutrition Committee funded research to look at 3 different types of technology. There's a camera system, a vision system, and then a near-infrared system to look at correlations or prediction equations for, well, that was bright. Thank you, Chris. To look at measuring or assessing a whole boneless loin, taking a picture of the whole boneless loin, and then giving a prediction equation on marbling, color, and tenderness. But those are just the three factors the committee looked at. There's more factors you could look at. But each technology has pros and cons to it. Some better measurements at marbling than others, or some better predictions at color than others. So it's really up to the industry on what technology they want to pursue and see what works best with them. But there's technology available to do that right now at line speed. Good question. Yes, ma'am.
So marbling, color, and tenderness, but not pH. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, and that's a great question, Colette Castor.
Thank you, Steve Larson.
When the committee talked about measurement technologies, we tried to keep it somewhat consumer orientated. And when you talk pH about consumers, they don't quite understand that. But pH and color are correlated and related. So the higher the pH, the darker colored, or the lower the pH, the more acidic pH, the lighter the color. So they have the opportunity to predict and correlate pH. That's one of the factors. I just left that out. I put color in there as a substitute for pH. So all three of them have varying predictabilities. I think that's the right terminology for pH also. In the way back there.
Everett, when you were talking about what we need to get to, where we need to go, you uttered the words all natural. Do you want to elaborate on that and what you meant by that?
Well, I guess what I meant about that was making sure that the product that we have has not been adulterated with something that the consumer fears. So, again, we need to be consumer driven, and if we get away from that, we're going to find out that the consumer is still always right. So that's kind of what I was alluding to there, just to make sure that the product is what they want to consume. And as you all know, our consuming public today is more concerned about how their product's being raised, how it's being fed, and how it's being served than they ever have before. Good question.
Yes, sir, you had a question.
So my question was kind of along the same lines. So in the dairy industry, it's grass-fed and beef as well. Grass-fed, same in chickens and other things. Is there anything that you would forecast in the pork industry, say maybe it's a breed or what the industry might be looking for in the future, or something you're planning for?
Well, I can tell you what our experience has been. Our experience has told us that there are two pure lines of hogs that excel in quality above all others, and that is the Duroc breed and the Berkshire breed. And if you look and kill enough pigs, you'll find out that the quality lies pretty much in those two breeds. In our business, we have created a terminal line boar using those two breeds, and have been marketing that for about 12 years now to our commercial people, that particularly those that are looking to be a part of value-added markets. And a lot of things add value. Some of them, I think, add real value, but the value that they add is still in the mind of the consumer. So it's got to be consumer driven. But I think there is a difference. I think we need to continue as seed stock people and producers to put genetic selection into that area. Because there is a difference, and there are differences between breeds. Our white breeds tend to be much lower in pH and marbling, but who wants to raise pigs without having white sows? Not very many people, because we've already proven that you got to have white sows to maximize, it looks like, pig numbers in that part of the industry. So it'll be a combination of putting some different breeds and traits together that I think we'll see going down the road.
Can I add on to that?
Yep.
I think to add on to that question, our customers are looking for points of differentiation, and with lack of a quality standard out there, I think their differentiation went to antibiotic-free or outdoor or all-natural or whatever aspect they're looking for differentiation rather than a quality aspect, whether color or marbling or tenderness or something like that. So again, I think a quality standard will help us differentiate our product without confusing the consumer of antibiotic-free or never-ever antibiotics or outdoors or partially outdoors or something like that, which is all fine and dandy, but it just tends to put some confusion out there to consumers. Good question. Jared, you had a question back there.
Everett, I was going to ask the balance between genetics and nutrition. I probably know where you may lean towards, but how does the nutrition influence those quality attributes as it relates to color and the intermuscular fat marbling?
Well, I wished I knew the answer to that for sure. I don't know that I do have the answer for that for sure, but I can tell you this. In our 10-year experience now of withdrawing all antibiotics, particularly in the last year or two, I mean, we went out and found products that were more natural, and we have some new products today coming on the market. We just recently updated with the nutritionalists we use a new pig starter diet last October that only he knows exactly what all he's put in it, but he will tell me because I pay him. But it's got some new product in it that I can tell you right now it is really working, and we're getting pigs off the best we have ever been able to get them off, and but I do know there is a nutritional component. I'm not sure exactly what all those are.
Yeah, good question. Any more questions? What other questions does you guys have? Yes, sir.
Is there any research found in regards of these genetics of finding more traits associated with the quality and the nutrition part?
Oh, is there research looking at genetics and these quality attributes? I believe that's the question. And I'll go to what Everett said. I'll let Everett finish up that there tends to be two specific breeds out there that offer a higher genetic or higher quality product out there, but their efficiency is maybe not as good as some of the other breeds out there, so there's going to be a combination of genetics that we're going to have to use.
If you go back 25 years, the National Pork Board funded a sire evaluation program that told us that, and we looked at quality aspects, it told us that the best quality pork 25 years ago was Berkshire, and then Duroc, and then down into our white breeds. That's still pretty predominantly what we see today. So it's there is a genetic component. There's no doubt about it. But the nutritional part is another one. But I see already, as we are talking about withdrawing use of antibiotics, we've already got new products out there coming. And I think when push comes to shove in this country and we're up against our backs against the wall, we innovate and we create. And I really think that we're 10 years from now, we're going to have nutritional products on the market that will help us move to fewer antibiotics as well as maybe continue to improve pork quality.
Well, hey, thank you all for being here. Please remember tomorrow, Jim Carhart's going to do the same thing, different spin on it. Thank you, Everett. Chris, thank you very much for the moderation. And have a great day at Expo.